Hey, it's New Thought Talk. I'm your host, the Reverend Steve Walling. Welcome back. It's a great day here in the Central Valley of California, here in the heart of California in Fresno, and we're picking up today where we kind of left off last week in the introduction to the Science of Mind, what we call the textbook. Ernest Holmes wrote 4 introductory chapters: the thing itself, the way it works, what it does, and how to use it. As I said last week, and we talked about the thing itself, it was a really radical concept that Dr. Holmes brought to the world when he said, let's talk about the divine principle, the creative source, that which is all that is, oftentimes we call God, as the thing itself, and what that led to in a way to present concepts to people that may have been kind of stuck in old beliefs and learning something new and creating a greater life experience for themselves. So the next chapter in this was called The Way It Works, and I'm going to get into that today. We're going to talk about it. It's another exciting concept of Dr. Holmes. But before we do, I want to read something out of the Edinburgh lectures that were written and given by Judge Thomas Troward back at the turn of the early part of the 20th century. And it's just this one little thing I want to read to you here. He says, "We see then that the livingness of life, and life is with a capital L, meaning divine principle, consists in intelligence. In other words, it is the power of thought, and we may therefore say that the distinctive quality of spirit is thought. And as the opposite to this, we may say that the distinctive quality of matter is form." And in the human being, the human family, we have a physical expression of form, but a consciousness, a spiritual expression of divine intelligence, thought, the ability to make choice, consciousness, what we call God. We talk about man, humanity, being created in the likeness and the image of God. And obviously, we're not talking about the physical aspect. We're talking about the spiritual, the nature of man, of humanity. So as we go through this today, I want you to keep these things in mind. So Dr. Holmes introduces this chapter. He says, the science of mind is not a special revelation of any individual. It is rather the culmination of all revelations. He said, we take the good wherever we find it, making our own insofar as we understand it. The realization that good is universal as God is universal, and that as much good as any individual is able to incorporate in his life or her life, it's theirs to use. He says this is what constitutes the science of mind and spirit. In other words, learning how to use the thing itself and incorporate that in our life. That as the miniature, if you will, the microcosm of the grand infinite macrocosm, that humanity has at its disposal a resource of infiniteness. And this is what this master teacher Jesus taught when he came to earth so many years ago. And he taught, as Troward lays it out, he taught a process. And this process, as we put it into play in our own life experience, lays out for us a very powerful, not only teaching, but tool that we can use. And when Jesus says it's done unto us as we believe, and he talks about how we can go through this process, create our beliefs, increase our beliefs through faith, and we can therefore have greater access to the divine principle, greater use and greater demonstration and expression in our life. And so he says here, Holmes goes on to say, universal mind or spirit is God. That's what he's talking about, the thing itself. He says there's a universal mind, spirit, intelligence. And when I say intelligence, now I want you to remember what I just read from Judge Troward, that intelligence is thought, and it is the life principle that it expresses itself, and that this is the origin, Holmes says, of everything. It is first cause. It is God. This universal life and energy finds an outlet in and through all that is energized, and through everything that lives. So when we talk about everything that lives, we're talking about, if you will, degrees of livingness. Now, there's an old Eastern saying that says that God sleeps in the rock and dreams in the plant and stirs in the animal and awakens in mankind or humanity. And that's not a bad way of looking at the degree of livingness, if you will. Now, we can say that dead matter, it has no livingness to it, but in truth, if it's all God, and God is the life principle, then at some level we're talking about some degree of life. And we all know today that if we go down and we break down matter far enough, we get to atoms, molecules, atoms, and subatomic particles, and all this stuff at this level. There's a lot of movement going on. There's a lot of energy. So we can't just say that because we don't see the movement in it, that it is dead in it and there's not movement there. In truth, we know that there is. But we also know that the degree of intelligence there is minimal, if not at all. When we move into the plant, well, there's life there, but there's still not movement as we understand it. From plants into animals, now we begin to see that there is an active form of livingness, if you will. But there's no difference if we talk about life itself. Life exists in the plant, and life exists in the animal. Now, is there more life in a fish than a elephant, or is life just life? As we say, there's one life. That life is God, and we all express that in and through our day-to-day life experience as human beings, but life is expressed everywhere. So, moving forward, he says, the life which we live is the universal life expressing through us. Else, how could we live? Our thoughts and our emotions are the use that we make, consciously or unconsciously, of this original creative thing that is the cause of everything. And I want to stop right here and talk about this, because as I get into this, one of the things that I like to say is when we talk about the way it works, what we're really talking about is us. We are the way that it works, it being God. God works as it expresses in our life, each an individual. And our purpose for living here is to live life, and to live life more abundantly. In other words, to live life with the maximum amount of livingness that we can, and we have available to us all of the potentiality of the divine principle when we begin to understand that. So as Dr. Holmes is introducing the concepts of science of mind, religious science, to people in the beginning of the textbook, he's setting them up. First he talks about God is the thing itself, this divine infinite potential. And then he says the way it works, and we are the way it works. And so as we get into this today and we talk about, consider that we're talking about each and every one of us. And so as we look at each and every one of us, we want to look at what it is that we are, so that next week when we talk about what it does, and then the final week and how to use it, we can begin to lay out for our own personal spiritual life expression all the good things that Holmes was talking about. So he says, there is spirit, or this invisible cause, and nothing out of which all things are made. Now spirit plus nothing leaves spirit only. And so he's laying again the foundation that we are some part of the demonstration of the divine principle. If in the beginning there's God and nothing else, well, God plus nothing else leaves God only. So all of creation is an expression of God, of spirit, of first cause, of the thing itself. And that's why when we look at all of creation here, we realize that there's some form of divine in all of creation. Consider this for a minute. I want to take a little side bar here, if you will, that when we look at the creation, and this is an expression of God, and God is all that there is, we look out in the world today and we see all the chaos in the world and people struggling and fighting against each other. We have to stop and realize that we're all an expression of God. In other words, we are all brothers and sisters, if you will. We're all part of the one family. We're all part of this greater unity. And as we begin to seek to put this great, powerful force into use in our life, that we can only do so when we align ourselves with principle. And again, I speak of this more often than not, that when Jesus was walking the face of the earth, and they asked him about, what's the most important thing, he said, love God with all that you are, love your neighbor as yourself. And he didn't make any exceptions. And we have to start there. And, starting there, and then from there moving out into the world. But that means that starting place takes place within us, because we are what God does. And it's up to us, by our choice, by seeking to create a better us, by seeking to create a greater livingness, raising our consciousness, raising our spiritual intelligence, if you will. It's up to us to create a better world. And we don't do it by going out into the world. We do it by going within ourselves. So, the seed of perfection, Holmes tells us, is hidden within. He says, original life is infinite. It's good. It is filled with peace. It is the essence of purity. Original life. There's one life. That life is God. That life is perfect. And that life is our life now. And that is the essence of purity. It is the ultimate of intelligence. It is power. It is law. It is life. It is in us. It is that inner sanctuary in our own nature, he says, hidden perhaps from the objective gaze, but within us nestles the seed of perfection. The seed of perfection. Wow. What is that seed of perfection? And why is it that we don't see it expressed in our life? I mean, if the seed of perfection exists within us, that means that health, harmony, happiness, abundance, beauty, peace, you can go on and name all these wonderful love, all these positive attributes that we talk about when we talk about God. It's part of that seed of perfection, and it exists within us. In other words, the capability to love all is within us. The capability of appreciating all is within us. The capability of experiencing life in a wholeness is within each and every one of us. The reason why we don't? Very simple. We didn't come with an owner's manual. We've all had to discover this for ourselves. And humanity has taken time. And in that time that it's taken, we've made many, shall we say, mistaken choices as a group, as an expression of the divine principle. So, moving forward here, he says, in our ignorance of truth, we have misused the highest power we possess. And so great is this power, so complete is our freedom in it, so absolute is the domain of law through it, that the misuse of this power has brought upon us the very conditions from which we suffer. We are bound before we are first free. The power which appears to bind us is the only power in the universe which can free us. There is a power that can free us. There is a power for good available to each and every one of us at the degree that we are open, receptive to it, believe in it, and have faith. We're going to take our first break. I really like sharing this. I always enjoy this part of the year, talking about the introductory chapters. So I'll see you. We'll pick it up when we come back from our break.
With Organic Pastures Raw Milk, you're getting a product that has been meticulously managed from grass to glass. From our pastures to our dairy, creamery, and distribution, we work hard to produce a product that is safe and clean for you.
Chef Big Will presents the original Bonton Cafe. Stop by 7307 Highway 49 North in Mariposa for the best blackened or southern fried catfish. Go and eat good food and sweet drinks, including but not limited to Cajun and Creole, smoking barbecue, hush puppies, fried pickles, alligator tail, etouffee, prime rib, tri-tip, po' boy sandwiches, crawfish, oysters, fried okra, and so much more. Daily lunch and dinner specials. Sunday brunch from 10 to 2. Enjoy the taste of New Orleans at the original Bonton Cafe. And see their full menu at theoriginalbontoncafe.com.
The Saga of Bridget and Amanda by Carol Love Forbes brings to life the struggles of historical women in early America. Find the Saga of Bridget and Amanda on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and order your copy today.
Harness the power of the sun and cut your electric bill down to size with Soltech Solar. Call today and request a free quote at 559-325-6907 or visit soltechsolar.com.
Looking for work? Tired of minimum wage? For as low as $200, become certified as a forklift driver at the Certified Forklift Training Center. Call 559-325-8097 or visit cftc.net.
Fresno Dixieland Society presents the Sounds of Mardi Gras, February 7th to the 10th, 2019, at the Doubletree by Hilton. Get your tickets today. For more information, go to FresnoDixie.com or call Linda at 209-534-1924. Again, that's 209-534-1924.
Welcome back to New Thought Talk. I am your host, the Reverend Steve Walling. I hope you're enjoying today's show. I'm having a good time sharing this today. And, you know, as we go through our day-to-day life experience and we walk our spiritual path and we grow within ourselves, our faith and our belief, a constant taking time each day to study and meditate on the things that empower us, the things that promote life for us is such an important thing to do. So I'm glad you're with us today. So I'm moving forward here, reading and going through the second chapter of the Introduction to the Science of Mind by Ernest Holmes. And he says here, this is why Jesus summed up his whole philosophy in this simple statement. It's done unto you as you believe. It's done unto you as you believe. You know, when we look at done unto you, that could be something that is very enlightening, or, you know, sometimes it's used more as a threat, but it's a reality that it's done unto us as we believe. If we believe in anger, if we believe in evil, if we believe in limitation, in other words, if we believe in a materialistic, relativistic reality, then it's done unto us at that level. Because within materialism and relativism, there's limitation, there's lack, there's all sorts of things that do not promote the life principle. But if you are able to open your mind to a concept of a divine principle that's absolute in all of it is, in its infiniteness, absolute in its ability to provide, absolute in its goodness, absolute in peace and harmony. And through this coming year, we'll talk about the reasons why it's important to understand that goodness is what God does, that we can't look to the divine principle, we can't look to the thing itself and see something that's in opposition to it, because it's infinite. It's infinite good. There's no place within that infinite good for anything else. So moving forward, he says, the great teacher looked so deeply into nature that she revealed her fundamental simplicity to him, and that is that believe and that as symbolize heaven and hell, done unto us as we believe. As is where our focus is, and believe is what it is that we believe in. Today, in psychology, cognitive behavioral therapy, one of the premises of this, and it's a very popular psychological approach to treating mental issues, is an understanding that our beliefs create our reality. Well, you know, that's something that in New Thought we've had a kind of a corner on that going back to our very beginnings. What we believe is what is expressed in our life, and we know that. In other words, if we want to change our life, we need to change our beliefs. You know, the late Wayne Dyer had a book. He said it was entitled "When You Believe It, You Will See It." Not you'll see it when you believe it, or you'll see it when you believe it. Okay, excuse me. You have to believe in order to see. And this seeing is not necessarily on a physical level, with our eyes, but it's on an interior level, it's a spiritual level, on a level so deep within ourselves that we actually touch that light which exists within us. But we have to take the time to do the work, to go within to find this. So he says Spirit works for us by first working through us. God can't work for us outside of ourselves. God works for us by working through us. He says the thing then works for us by working through us and is us always. It cannot work for us in any other way. It spreads itself over the whole universe, and it shouts at us from every angle. It shouts at us. God is constantly trying to get our attention, but it can become power to us only when we recognize it as power. You know, as long as we have a belief that God is something out there, that something is separate from us, if we have a belief that we're not part of a greater whole, a greater unity, that we are separate, then when we look out into the world and we see the chaos and the anger and the discord and the limitation and all that stuff, we truly are alone in our experience. But in truth, we're not alone in our reality. And this is what Holmes is the point he's trying to make here, that God is with us because God expresses as us and through us. And when we begin to realize it's done unto us at the level of our belief, you know, we start right where we're at, where our beliefs are, and we begin to seek to make changes. Now, changing beliefs is not necessarily the easiest thing in the world for anyone to do, but it's very possible, and that's what the science of mind teaches, is ways that we can change our beliefs, grow our spirituality, increase our spiritual toolbox, experience an expression of a greater, more abundant, and more positive, healthful, exciting, exuberant life expression. In other words, bringing more livingness into our life experience. And it's available to each and every one of us. He says we cannot recognize it while we are believing that it is not. Hence, it is written that they entered not because of unbelief. He says, we may enter in because of our belief, but we cannot enter while there is unbelief. Here, we come to a house divided against itself. If we say we can only experience a little good, then we shall experience but a little good. That's it. What are we going to experience in our life today? Well, you know, if you say I'm experiencing not so much, and I want to experience a whole lot more, well, you're experiencing not so much at this point because that's where your beliefs have pegged you at this time. So just because you say you want to experience a whole lot more doesn't mean a whole lot more is all of a sudden going to show up in your life. You have to increase your belief in the reality, if you will, that you can experience more. And we usually do that in a growing sort of way. You know, it's an evolution, if you will. And Spirit, God works a lot in the world, in nature, through an evolutionary process. So it's not so strange to think about the evolutionary process working in our individual lives through the changing of our beliefs. It's how it's done. I've talked about in the past, and I'm going to take a moment right here and talk about individuals that seek to come to a new thought philosophy, whether it be unity, whether it be divine science, whether it be religious science, with the idea of really tapping into the law of attraction. And most definitely, the law of attraction is a very important part of what we teach, but it's only a part. And the thing is, what we teach is really kind of a holistic, if you will, a 3, 4, 5, 6-dimensional way of approaching spirituality in life. And if you focus only on the law of attraction, thinking that you're going to be able to only through this bring good into your life or abundance, and usually it's abundance or health that people seek to use the law of attraction for, sometimes relationship and other things, but you fail to bring yourself in alignment with divine principle, then you know, you may find that you're having some difficulty seeing it expressed. Now, oftentimes when we're new to this philosophy and we're really excited and we build up the feeling within ourselves, we can see the law of attraction unfold. But as we begin to mature, if you will, and things don't seem to be quite working out so well. That's when we have to realize that maybe there's more work that we need to do within ourselves. But the exciting and the thing and the promise is, as we do those things, as we do that work within ourselves, we grow our belief, we grow our faith, and we grow our ability to see God, divine principle, the thing itself, first cause, unfold in our life. And yes, it is unfolding through the great law of cause and effect, through the law of attraction, through the law of harmony and love. But we got to bring ourselves there. So, moving forward, he says, our beliefs set the limits to our demonstration of a principle which of itself is without limit. It is ready to fill everything because it is infinite. So it's not a question of its willingness, nor of its ability. It's entirely a question of our own receptivity and our own alignment with this. He says, how much can we believe? Now that's a question that, we kind of chuckle at. How much can you believe? Well, think about it. Can you believe if you are struggling right now with some aspect of your life, that whether it be financial, whether it be health, whether it be relationship or job or anything else, if you're struggling, and I ask you, how much can you believe? You have to look at what life is bringing at you in this moment and say, well, this is what I'm believing now. Can I believe more? Ask yourself the question. The answer to that question is a definite affirmative, but we have to begin to do the things for ourselves. We go within to change, to grow, to evolve our beliefs, to accepting and embodying a concept of being greater at the level of receptivity. God is infinite. God is infinite love and infinite good, and God is available to each and every one of us. That's the promise. That's the principle. And that's what we're here to learn and understand as we move forward in our life experience. So how much can we believe? That we must go the way of the law is a fundamental tenet of this science. Perfect love, perfect law. And again, this is where, when I talk about being in alignment with principle, the law is what it is. We can't change the law. The law says it's done unto us at the level of what we believe. And you say, okay, well, I can believe that I'm going to have this good or this thing in my life. But if your beliefs also include things that are not in alignment with principle, then that becomes a limiting factor of your belief, because belief is not, as we're talking about it here, is not just a single item, a single issue. Belief is the totality of our belief, because we are an expression of the divine principle as us. There's no secret closet, if you will, in our beliefs that we can hide something away from truth. We can't do it. We the old saying, you can run, but you can't hide. You've got no place to go. So as you begin to put spiritual principles into practice in your life, we have to do a kind of a self-evaluation, if you will. We have to look at some things maybe that we don't want to look at. We have issues, people, things, prejudices, beliefs and limitations, and on and on and on, that cloud our ability to express all of God's divine good in our experience, and it limits us. We're going to take our next break, and I'll pick this up on the next segment.
After a tough day at the track, cleaning up can be a time-consuming task. That's why we use Extreme Cleaner, the non-toxic, biodegradable, multi-purpose cleaner and degreaser. Extreme Cleaner cuts through even the toughest of grease and grime. Fast. Great for cleaning tools and work surfaces. Extreme Cleaner. Tough on grime, safe on the environment. Visit extremecleaner.com to find a retailer near you.
Hi, I'm the host of New Thought Talk, Reverend Steve Walling, and I want to take a moment today and give you an opportunity to support our ministry, support our show. You can do that through a PayPal payment. You send the payment through PayPal to the email address of Madera, MADERASAC @gmail.com. If you don't have a PayPal account, you can go down below the link and you can find where you can enter a debit or credit card. I want to thank those that have supported us and those that will continue to support us. You have a great day. Bye.
Christy Majors is your local real estate connection. With a solid, hardworking team, traditional listings, short sales, probate listings, and foreclosures are treated in a personal and caring way and closed in a timely fashion. Since 2009, Team Majors has closed more than $75 million worth of homes all over California. Reliable and trustworthy, Christy and her team will go the extra mile for every client, whether selling or buying a home. So give Team Majors a call at 559-464-5606 or visit teammajors.com.
Welcome back to New Thought Talk. I'm your host, the Reverend Steve Walling, from the Spiritual Awareness Center located in Fresno, California. Moving forward here, how much can we believe? So we said that we must go the way of the law is fundamental of this science. There's a law. Law is not a rule. It's not something we can bend. It is the law. And he says, because nature, meaning divine principle, obeys us when we first obey it. In other words, we have to bring ourselves into alignment with principle. We have to bring ourselves into alignment with divine good. And as Jesus was teaching this years ago, a little further on into the science of mind, if you look, I believe it's on page 285. And Holmes says, he's talking about faith, talking about belief. And Holmes says, faith in God is such a complete conviction that the Spirit will make the gift, that there is no longer any that there is no longer any subjective contradiction. That's when he'll make the gift. He says, this faith can exist only in such degree as conviction is in line with reality. We cannot believe that any law of the universe will ever change its own nature because we desire to do so. In other words, as much as we like to hang on to some of our stuff, because we feel really solid, we believe that we're right and we're righteous in those beliefs. But if those beliefs are not in alignment, not in harmony with divine principle, then we got an issue. And he says here, we cannot believe that any law of the universe will ever change its own nature because we desire to do so. As we come into the spiritual realm, which is a perfect, natural, and normal realm, we have to come into it in its own nature. We are created in the likeness and the image of God. We are the nature. We express the nature of God. We have to bring ourselves into alignment with that nature. And so, it is a unity. There must be nothing vicious in it. He says, remember what Jesus says, and this is the teaching. He says, therefore, if thou bring thy gift to the altar, and there rememberest that thy brother has aught against thee, leave there thy gift before the altar, and go thy way, and first be reconciled to thy brother, and then come and offer the gift. And what is the gift? The gift is our acceptance and our belief. And as we give our acceptance, our belief, more will be done unto us for us. So, he says, why? Because we cannot enter into peace while there is a while we are in a state of confusion. It cannot be done. We cannot manifest love when we have a mental equivalent of hate in our minds and our hearts. Can't do it. Got to give it up. Anything that holds us into a position of separateness from the greater unity, the greater whole. And again, people talk about, well, if we do that, then we become doormats for those people that we have disagreements with. And that's not true. We can, and there's nothing wrong with establishing boundaries, but those boundaries still must be done with love, must be done with compassion. Remember that as we move forward, he says. So, it is our acceptance of it, of the divine principle. How much can we believe? As much as we can believe will be done unto us. So, when the consciousness speaks, the law receives and executes. What consciousness are we talking about? We're talking about our consciousness. But, again, you have to understand, our consciousness, it's an ongoing, never-ending cycle of thought, whether we're awake or whether we're asleep. What is the trend of that thought? Is it life-affirming? Is it in alignment with principle? Or is it full of fear and worry and anger and on and on and on, things that are not necessarily in alignment with principle? That will be determined by what it is that we believe, and our beliefs are held in our subjective mind, or the majority of them are. So he says, the consciousness speaks, the law receives and executes. When a farmer plants a seed, he invokes the law. That which follows is done by the mechanical side of nature, which has no volition of its own. The law responds to whatever it is that we put into it, he says. Involution is the cause, and evolution is the effect. When a practitioner thinks or gives a treatment, and in a sense we're all practitioners in our own life, he says, or makes a prayer, he or she is dealing with involution, the first step of the creative order. We make the statement. This is what the Bible calls the Word. The Word, powerful when we understand this. That which follows is evolution, or the unfoldment of the word or concept into objective existence. And the thing is, this is always ongoing. It's not we pause and take time for our prayer, for our affirmative prayer work, and that's the only time that our word is being spoken. Our word is being spoken continuously. We're told to pray without ceasing. Reality is we are in constant communication, if you will, or interaction with divine principle. Praying without ceasing means we bring that interaction into alignment with divine principle. In all things God, practicing the presence of God, aligning ourselves with principle, creating a greater acceptance, growing our belief, building on our faith. That's what we're talking about doing here. He says, this is what the Bible calls the Word, and that which follows is evolution, or the unfoldment of the Word or concept into objective existence. What we put out comes back to us. So, we are thinking, willing, knowing, conscious centers of life. We are surrounded by, immersed in, and there is flowing through us a creative something. Call it what you will. The sum total of all our thought, will, purpose, and belief creates a tendency in this law that creates it and causes it to react to us according to the sum total of our belief. And that's what I was just talking about. Where are you today in the sum total of your belief, if you will? If you're caught up into the chaos of things external, then you're not caught up into alignment with principle. The changes that have to take place are not in the outer world, but they're within you. And as you create a greater, more positive, more abundant, harmonious inner world, your outer world will begin to reflect and mirror back to you the same thing. And this we find through all of Holmes's teachings and through New Thought in general. And when we look back to the teachings of the Master Teacher, that's also what he was teaching. He says, ignorance of this law excuses no one from its effect. Nobody gets a break. He says, if then certain specific ways of thoughts and belief have produced limitations, other beliefs will change them. We must learn to believe, he says. The approach to this should be direct and it should be specific. We must learn to believe. We don't think about how we acquired the beliefs that we've acquired. And oftentimes, many of those beliefs we acquired before we were like 5 years old. We don't even remember the time when those things happened, those events happened in our lives, where we begin to form and develop those beliefs, and they get filed in our memory bank in the subjective mind, and they sit there and they're generating these thoughts that are ongoing and not necessarily of a positive trend of thought. So suppose one is laboring under the idea of limitation. Their whole thought is a picture of limitation. Got that trend. Let's change that trend. Let's kick this out and let's replace it with something else. He says, where are they placing themselves within mind? Are they not, in substance, saying, I cannot have and enjoy good things? That's what we're telling ourselves. I talked to someone earlier today that works with people, and he said one of his clients developed a belief that money was more important than he was. And as a result of that, his whole life was a struggle because he didn't see himself as being important. He worked hard for money, but he didn't have a very successful or abundant life. Now here's the upside of this. The particular individual that I'm talking about worked with this person as a coach and as a spiritual mentor, and that individual went from having to struggle to work to developing a $600,000 a year financial flow of abundance. It's done unto us at the level of our belief, and it can be done unto you. So, he says, it may take time to reshape the basis of thought, but we can commence by saying, I perceive that because I am what I am, because this infinite thing, we're talking about thing, we're talking about divine principle, we're talking about something to get really excited about. We're talking about God itself. And that overshadows eternity and finds its abiding place within me. And I know good is mine, all good, right now. We can affirm that. Can you affirm that right now? All good is yours right now because you are the way that God works. You are that demonstration of good. And we're going to take our next break, and we'll pick it up when we come back.
Get your copy of Crouching Mama Hidden Veggies today, packed with recipes of delicious food cooked with hidden vegetables, so you can feel confident that you and your family are eating your veggies.
Contact Sprague Electric for all things electrical, solar installations, battery systems, troubleshooting, repairs, and more. Call 559-760-0712. SpragueElectric.com.
Are you or a member of your family beginning to show early signs of forgetfulness that may be Alzheimer's or dementia? The only way to be sure is through an expensive brain scan. Dr. Parminder Bhatia of the Neuropain Medical Center is helping in a clinical trial for those with memory problems, dementia, or mild Alzheimer's disease. Those accepted into the trial will have all costs paid for, from diagnosis to evaluations and trial medicine. There is no cost for those who are accepted in the trial, and there may even be some compensation for the patient's time and travel. For more information, call 559-437-9700, extension 310, and visit neuropain.com.
CentralValleyTalk.com.
Welcome back to New Thought Talk. I'm your host, the Reverend Steve Walling, and I hope you've been enjoying the show today as we're going through the second introductory chapter in the Science of Mind, what we often call the textbook. So moving forward, Holmes says there is no mental coercion in this. We do not will things to be done. Things are brought into being, not by will, but by the power of the self-assertive truth. Simplistically, it goes, if you know the truth will set you free. And, as you break that down, that really is a powerful affirmation. But oftentimes people don't think about the reality of what it is that's saying. When we know the truth of who we are, that we know that we are an expression of God, we know that we are what God does, that we know that God is available to us on all levels in our life experience. We can begin to live life and live it more abundantly. See, we live life as an expression of divine principle, but as we do this in ignorance, we're still using the law. We're still expressing God in ways that limit us. So it's a matter of coming to a point of realization of the truth of who we are. And once we recognize that truth, the liberty that's available to us, the freedom that becomes open to us, is limited only by the beliefs that we hold, the limitations that we have. And so as we begin to work on changing our beliefs, opening up our ability to accept a greater good in our life experience. Now when he's talking about will here, and we will, no pun intended, we will get into this later on, we've talked about it in previous shows. The will is a powerful tool, but it's not the tool that creates the connection, if you will, the mental equivalence within our consciousness with the good that we want to see in our life. What the will does is it helps us to focus. So in the early stages, as we're beginning to make that choice, that decision that we want to experience greater good, greater God in our life, we use our will to keep our mind focused on those things. In other words, when the mind begins to go back to the old way of thinking, the limited way of thinking, we bring it back. And our willpower is that, I call it our focuser. It helps to keep us focused. It's a powerful tool when it's used in that way, but oftentimes, some people think that all we have to do is will something into being, because that's the way we use the law of attraction, and that's not really the way it unfolds. But again, the will is a powerful tool. You can use it, and it can help. It's kind of like the compass that'll help keep us on the path, if you will. Well, again, no pun intended. We do not will things to be done. Things are brought into being not by will, but by the power of self-assertive truth. The truth known will demonstrate itself. How much can one demonstrate? How much can we demonstrate? And Holmes answers this. He says, just what one can believe. What can you believe? Not what can you, in your conscious mind, think that you believe. In other words, just because I say I believe it in my conscious mind, if I'm not seeing it expressed in my life, chances are, there's still some belief work to be done. He says, how much can we see? How much can we accept? How much can we find in our consciousness that is no longer repudiated by our own denials? Whatever that is, that much we can have. That much we can have. We can have what's done unto us at the level of our belief. The last section here, and today I took the time to actually go through and read most all of this chapter. The next two, I'm not going to have time to do that in one show, so we'll be kind of skipping through this. But you can always read ahead. We've done the thing itself. Now what it does. Next week will be the way it works, and then finally the last week of this 4-week section of shows, it was how to use it. Exciting time, how to use it. Sometimes when people come to New Thought and Religious Science, we talk about how to use it. They say, well, isn't that kind of sacrilegious? Well, when you begin to understand that you are what God does, how can that be sacrilegious if you utilize that which has created you, which is expressing life as you here and now, and which has effectively gifted you with anything that you can need, want, and desire when you bring yourself into harmony with its good, open your acceptance, grow your belief, and seek to see life demonstrated in your life at a higher and greater level. So good, only good, he says, not good and evil. He says, the gardener goes forth in faith and sows his seeds. He has learned that as he sows, so shall he reap, that the law works for all alike. We must accustom ourselves to the concept of the impersonalness of the law, the availability of the law, and the mechanical accuracy of the law. If we can conceive only a little good, that is as much as we can experience. Where do we plant these seeds that we're talking about here? Well, we plant those seeds in our subconscious, subjective mind. It's a concept. There's not really two minds. There's just this one mind. We talked a little bit about that last week. But in this subjective mind, the mind that makes sure that the blood is pumped, makes sure that the food is digested, makes sure that all the metabolic needs of the body are taken care of at the level that they need to be taken care of, the repository of our memories, where our emotions are stored. And these two things, when we understand memories and emotions, and we'll cover this in greater detail as we go on this year, when we combine those, they're very, very powerful things. And sometimes they work for us, but most often, because of our beliefs, they work in opposition to us. So our beliefs are held within our memory apparatus, if you will. And we know our beliefs are true because we have habitually accepted them as being true. But like any other habit, we can change those beliefs. And that's what we're talking about here. He says, we must instill into the mind the fundamental proposition that good is without bounds. Good is without bounds. All God, all good, all available at the level of our belief. We're going to grow our belief this year. We're going to increase our acceptance this year. We're going to build our faith ever greater. We're going to change our whole life experience. And we're going to do this because we've claimed that for our good. We've made that choice. We've made that decision. And this year, we own it. Today, we own it. In this moment, right here, right now, we can own it. And our story's going to tell us that we're still where we're at. Our story's going to tell us that we're still limited. But we're going to look at our story and say, you're just a story. You are my history, but you don't have to own me. I am freeing myself from the chains of bondage that you've held me in because I am what God does. I am God expressing as me, expressing through me. And I am that I amness. And because I'm claiming that, I can look at my story and say, yeah, there's memories there, there's life experiences there, but there's also a lot of bondage, limitation, and beliefs there that they're just not serving me today. And so I'm going to move forward, and I claim that today, that I am moving forward. So he says, we must still in the mind the fundamental proposition that good is without bounds. Only good and loving kindness shall follow me all the days of my life. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil. Thy rod and thy staff shall protect me. The 23rd Psalm is always a good affirmation to refer back to. I shall fear no evil. Powerful stuff. He says we must get this concept rather than continuing to think there's a power of evil as opposed to a power of good. And when we talk about this power of evil, we're sometimes people think when we talk about the power of evil, of course, we're talking about, all the evil in the world. But we're also talking about the power of hate, the power of belief and limitation, the power of living in a materialistic consciousness of the world, because that holds us back from experiencing and expressing God ever greater in our day-to-day life experience. It's a powerful thought. We've got to know, we've got to free ourselves, and we free ourselves through knowing the truth about ourselves. He says, We must get this concept rather than continuing to think there's a power of evil as opposed to a power of good. He says we experience good and evil because we have perceived a presence of duality rather than a unity. This concept of unity, when people begin to really focus on the idea of unity, the Fillmores called their own New Thought teaching, they called it unity. The reason why is it's so important that we understand not only are we one with God, we're not one with God really, we're God expressing as us within the greater goodness of all that God is. So, oftentimes we say one with, it's kind of like we're talking about two things. We're not. There's only one. There's only God. We are an individual aspect of God, individualized as us, but we are God expressed, and we're not separate from. And if we're not separate from, neither is the person next door or the person across the street or the person in the other state or in the other country or around the world. There's only one. That one is God, and we are part of that greater one. Never to be experienced as a separateness. Always to be experienced as a unity, as a oneness. And that's so important. We move forward, we've got to know that. He says, then, knowing that the thing can work for us, but only working through us, let us begin to accept today more good than we experienced yesterday. I challenge you today. Can you accept more good today? Can you, when you go to sleep tonight, can you be grateful for the greater good you experienced? Can you wake up tomorrow morning with an expectation of greater good to be experienced in your life? Can you do that? My challenge to you this week. He says, let us begin to accept more good today than we experienced yesterday, and to know that we shall reap a harvest of fulfilled desires. The desires that we have that bring greater happiness into the world, that lift us up and oftentimes lift up those around us. Those desires come from that inner light, that inner seed, if you will, that was planted within us at the moment of our creation and our exception, and it's waiting for us to recognize it, to nurture it, to fertilize it, if you will, and to bring it into fruition. But as we do that, we've got to remember, as we grow this up, we got to look for the weeds, and we got to do a little gardening and pull some weeds and clean things out and till the soil. We have to do that work. He says, the time must come when we shall have left the apparent evil behind. We can, and we will. We got to know that. He says, when it shall be rolled up like a scroll and numbered with the things which were once thought to be. In other words, roll it up with your story. Put it in the book. Put it on the shelf and leave it behind. Let love express through you as you. That's the divine principle, always. Love your neighbor. Love God. And of course, within that loving of God, we're loving ourselves. We're never less than. We're never too short. We're never not enough. We're never the wrong. We're always the perfect, because we are God expressed as us. And says, let us realize that the work with this sound knowledge and perfect faith, that as high as we shall make our mark in mind and spirit, so high shall be its outward manifestation in our material world. I've run at the end of my time for today. Have a great week. I'll see you when we come back, because the light of God expresses as you. No matter where you're at, God is there. All is well. See you, my friends. Have a good week.